welcome back to a new episode of the Women's Trans Society show. Today with a PSA, a public service announcement, something that we have been keeping secret for 21 weeks now. Do you want to say it?
We are pregnant.
We are pregnant. I am pregnant.
I thought that's how you say it. We are expecting.
We are expecting.
Somehow it feels like guys try to take some kind of ownership.
We are pregnant.
I did nothing.
It's okay.
Like, I had fun, and then I was like, okay, shit's happening.
Bébé Tanguy is coming, and it was kind of hard to not make it public earlier, but I also wanted to enjoy the time having it for myself and for us, and that's why we decided to not make it public earlier. I've seen so many women on Instagram like sharing from the very moment they found out they're pregnant.
From the pregnancy test, probably.
Yeah, really from
even,
the pregnancy test, and then throughout their whole pregnancy, they're like sharing like every tiny bit of everything they have experienced. And somehow that was not resonating with me, because I was like, hey, I have so many things to learn about myself and experience, and then on top, like, sharing that was just not fitting well with me.
You wanted to have basically the room for yourself to just like enjoy the process and not be under scrutiny and have people telling you what to do, what not to do.
Yeah, I think because especially with like pregnancy, it's like the same with nutrition, when everyone, you're doing something different with your nutrition, and then all of a sudden everyone is an expert on like everything. I think it's the same with pregnancy. All of a sudden everyone is a doctor and telling you what to do and not to do and all those things. And I think especially when it comes to women in fitness and pregnancy, there is still a lot of stuff that is not well accepted, right? Stuff like women lifting weights, women not only lifting weights, but heavy weights, stuff like that. And so I just wanted to see how, like, what can I do and what does feel right to me, instead of having a lot of voices around me in my head telling me to do X, Y, and Z. And so I picked a couple of voices to be in my head. A very few people like you.
I count for two voices.
You count for two voices.
Yeah,
why?
I think I count. Yeah, because I have some say in the matter when
you
it
have
comes
like
to
the
our
father
baby.
role. You have the father role,
I
of
do.
course. And then also the coach role, because you are the one who's creating my training programming.
No, but on a side note, very briefly on that, I was kind of surprised because I heard some people in my surroundings that had to apply for recognition of their fatherhood, and it was because they were not married. And it means that they also had no say during the pregnancy on what happens if there's any medical intervention that is necessary. Then they actually don't have anything to legally, they don't have any rights about that. But since we are married, then it was different, and I'm like, yes.
You're like, jackpot.
Then it means that I can, give my opinion and tell you what to do. No, of course not.
I mean, I'm super happy that you're so involved, and that you're interested in. I think it's not something that every man is doing in a relationship, and every father. You definitely want to understand like the process and what's happening and how the baby's developing and what is happening in each week of the trimester. And
Yeah, I
what
think
kind of minerals he needs to eat. And already spoiled it.
the baby.
The baby.
Yeah, the baby. Um, I think more and more because now it's becoming more and more visible, and it helps me like have a connection, and also I can feel what's happening. The baby's kicking already, which is pretty crazy.
Plyometrics.
Yeah, doing some plyometrics and squats and push-ups. We don't know what's happening, but this certainly helped. At the beginning, I was just like, "Hey, I don't see anything different. I cannot say that something is happening."
Yeah, and also my first trimester was like nothing was happening.
Yeah, so maybe tell us about that. I want to hear everything.
You want to hear everything?
Yeah, so
Okay, let me go down the rabbit hole.
First, I would like to hear, the kind of representation that you had of what pregnancy means for you when it comes to your workouts, maybe your nutrition, and your body in general.
Mm-hmm. So I think there was a big thing holding me back from, although I knew that I wanted to become a mom someday and have a family with you, there was still something definitely holding me back from like being like, okay, now is the time. And it definitely had a lot to do with not being that independent anymore, my body changing, although I maybe don't want it to change. Me having to modify my training and do maybe some more gentle stuff, me not deadlifting and squatting and all those things. Like that was my imagination of what it means to like go through pregnancy. I think one person that flipped that a little bit for me was back in the days my business mentor Annie Miller, because for me she showed me, and it was cool because she shared also parts of her journey then on social media, but she definitely showed me that you can have like wear multiple hats, and that you're not only the mom, but she's also a business owner. She's the breadwinner in her family. She is a strength coach, and she's strength training and lifting. And so there were like multiple things that she could still do, no matter like what's going on in her body. Like she was not all of the sudden stripping away all the other identities, and then it was just like, oh, I'm just a mom and that's everything I do all day long.
And as far as I know, it was not expected, and it was not necessarily wanted to be pregnant for her. It was just like, okay, it happened, and now that it's happened, then let's roll with it. But I think I remember you telling me that it was not like she had a burning desire to...
Yeah, exactly. I think...
or at least not at that time.
Exactly. Not at that time, exactly. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, so maybe it's something that will eventually come for me at some point. Because remembering back in the days when I started my health and fitness journey in my mid-20s, I started it because I was diagnosed with PCOS and I had a missing period. And although there was also that big desire to transform my body, because I really I didn't like what I see in the mirror, right? I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. There was to the same degree also the I'm not healthy. Like I'm not healthy. I'm not functioning well. Like my body something is off, something is not right, and I have to take care of that. And I remember being at the doctor's appointment and getting that like diagnosis of like PCOS, and leaving the building, calling my mom and telling her that I will potentially not be able to become pregnant. And only if maybe only if I get back on the contraceptive pill and start taking that again. And something in me was like, just no, there has to be a different way. It's not just about taking now a pill, then you have a quote unquote regulated period and you gain your period back, which is not very much, it has not very much to do with the regular period.
Yeah, it's not like a natural one, natural bleeding. Yeah.
Exactly, it's not a natural bleeding. And so this whole concept didn't make sense to me. But I had that urge in like, I want to have a family someday and become a mother, and I don't want, like, I want to be in the healthiest, I want to live in the healthiest possible body. And everything that I did since then, which is like 10 years of work, is now kind of coming to fruition.
Quite literally.
With getting pregnant, and not only getting pregnant, but experiencing the pregnancy as I'm experiencing it. Because now going into my first trimester, I was getting a lot of social media, like pregnancy social media stuff. Like social media was showing me, of course, all the women in their first trimester and how horrible it is and how they're feeling and how they cannot do anything and how they need to vomit. Like they have all of the symptoms, like everything. They're feeling like trash, basically, and they just need to lay around. And this is the case for some women. And I kind of expected that it will happen to me too, because I just thought this is the normal way that it goes. But then now I also thought at some point, there is so much that we think is also normal. And I don't want to, tell anyone that you're doing anything wrong if you have had those experiences. And I'm just talking about myself here and my experience. But for example, PMS and cramping during periods, that's also something that we see as normal, right? Which is not. Like, you should not have severe cramping and pain during your menstrual cycle. It's actually a sign that something can be a little bit improved. There can be so many things. We don't have to go into that right now. But for me, it was the same with the first trimester. I was like, I think there are so many things that you can work and improve on and optimize beforehand, because when you're in it, then it's probably too late to take care of that, to make sure that your body is in a very good state to handle what's going on. And I do think I will definitely clap myself on my shoulder, because the last 10 years have been a lot of work. And of course, for me, it was fun, and I love that kind of work, but it was work. There are a lot of people who would not do that kind of stuff and be so diligent with training and nutrition, and also not only getting into the gym and making sure that you are like fueling properly, but then also trying to become better and better in like what you are doing, right? That was the reason why I got a little bit more into cardio, because I understood at some point like, hey, it's probably good to do that for like metabolic state, but also like how my body is, the level of stress that my body is experiencing and how my body is dealing with stress. And so I was putting that work in as well. And I do think everything came together, and that's why I had like no symptoms at all during my first trimester. I had a couple of days where I was definitely more tired. I was like, usually I'm not a nap person, and there were maybe like 2 days where I took a nap. And one thing that happened to me is that I had to vomit like once. And it's because I skipped breakfast. I was postponing my breakfast because I had a date with my mom for brunch. And so I was like, I will not eat breakfast because we will have a brunch. And so I just had a tea. And I think that's it. And I think you left the you left the apartment, you went to the gym. I was waiting for my mom to come, and then I had to I was like, well, I just need to get it out. And I remember writing you like, I think it's starting now. The symptoms,
Yeah,
like now is the vomiting. Like I think it was week 6 or 7 or something like that.
But even then, it was pretty funny because that's what you said. But also, you said like, "Hey, it was not bad at all. It was just like it had to get out." But then right after, I felt much better.
Yeah, I had to
at once.
I was puking like 3 times, and that was it.
And
I
that
felt
was
great
it,
after
yeah.
that.
And then you even said like, "Hey, even if I have to do that like every day for the next few weeks or even few months, I'm fine. I'm okay if this is how I'm
Yeah.
going to feel, because it's just like, okay, you get it out. You feel not that great for a few minutes, you get it out, and then it's done. Then that's fine." And I was like, okay, because I had no expectation in one way or another of what
Yeah.
was going to happen. But then you were like, you were telling me this, and it was pretty cool, because I was like, okay, she kind of just accept the circumstance, and it's not something that is just like going around and around and around in your head, where you're like driving yourself mad because, I don't know, you're a victim of the pregnancy and its symptoms and that sort of things. But then it happened once and then never again, pretty
Exactly.
much. Yeah.
And that's it. Like that was my first trimester experience. And I found it so interesting because there is a lot of women share the bad stuff that's happening, because it's also kind of more, you have more to talk about.
Yeah.
Almost, right? Yeah. Because when I'm sitting here and telling you that my first trimester was amazing and I didn't feel any symptom, like that's it, right? That's kind of the story. And I do think that a lot of women who have the same experience as I had, they're just not sharing it, because there's nothing to really like talk or share about. Because then when we went to the doctor, and I was telling her like that I feel amazing, everything is great, and she was like, yeah, there are a lot of women who feel that way. It's just that there's not a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I definitely want to share that it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to feel like trash. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. And also, if you are not a mom yet, but you want to become one, that you definitely take the time beforehand doing some kind of work, a little bit more precise work to prep yourself for this big thing.
And I think so for me on the outside, what was interesting was the realization that it can go either way, and that the expectation that you have beforehand are going to drive a lot of how you experience it. And because I think what you said before was like, hey, I had a bit this not really fear, but like apprehension that you'd not be able to train, and that your body would change so radically that you would not recognize yourself. Like, that's not exactly what you said. I'm paraphrasing, but it was a bit more slightly like negatively pulled.
Yeah.
And then what was interesting during the whole pregnancy up until this point was how you were positively surprised, because you experienced not a lot of symptoms at all. You've been able to continue with the training almost like exactly the same as what you were doing before. And I think like the mindset around that, or just the expectation that you have, is going to play a huge role. And for me, it was just like, okay, whatever is going to happen, then I'm going to try and support you the best that I can, and we are going to improvise something if it's needed. If I have to prepare you like sandwiches every morning because that's the only thing that you are able to eat, or there's it's funny because my father was talking about that recently. There's that kind of, I don't know how it's ingrained in our society that women who are pregnant sometimes have like super weird cravings.
Yeah, and food aversions
and
as
food
well,
aversion
like
as well.
both.
Yeah, and so he was asking if you had any of that, and he was like, I was like, no,
No.
not really. Like sometimes you just like, oh, I would love to eat a burger. I would love to eat
Yeah.
pasta, like some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But like, weird combination of pickles with Nutella or something like this.
Who knows? Maybe it will come now, like in the second
Maybe
half of
maybe it will.
of the pregnancy, but maybe not. And I think also I definitely got more hungry in the first trimester. That's
Yeah.
definitely something that you have experienced. But I don't know if it's hard. It's hard to understand really if it was really that, or if it was tied to also the expectation that I had of like, oh, now I will become more hungry and all those things. So it's because now, like in the second trimester, I definitely was craving less stuff or less hungry, and I'm eating basically the same that I did before. Because also before I would not track like everything that I'm eating. I was already like not tracking my food anymore every day. I'm still weighing myself. Like I still have the habit of weighing myself. I also know that for a lot of women that's stressful and they're not doing it, or they're saying stuff like, for me, it doesn't matter. I don't have to know my weight in pregnancy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not weighing myself. Just like, I'm not weighing myself to like crazy control that I'm not gaining weight, because that doesn't make sense. I've already gained 7 kilo. So I'm not trying to control or suppress the weight gain by weighing myself. But it helps me to have some kind of awareness also around my nutrition, because sometimes you have just more appetite. It's not really like more hunger. It's just more appetite. And then I like to connect the dots of, oh, did I had like yesterday a leg day? Like, was that a heavy session? And then it has more, it's more tied to that than pregnancy per se, I would say. And understanding that and connecting the dots and still having the routine of doing the things that I did before definitely helps me to have also the feeling, or to live life as I did before, kind of.
Yeah. But I do think like at the beginning, some of the hunger or appetite was tied to that, because it also matched like some of the symptoms that you had in terms of change in heart rate and blood pressure and that sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall exactly how that came about, but for some reason we decided to measure your blood pressure. Maybe because your heart rate, resting heart rate was a bit higher than usual. Something along those lines.
I think I was a little bit, I went to the bath, like I took a bath. It was a little bit too hot, and I felt a little bit like, ooh, like a little dizzy when I got up. And then I was just curious. Like, we are curious creatures at home.
Yeah, definitely.
We are testing those things.
But and it was pretty cool because you were tracking some of that stuff with your Oura Ring. So this is not advertising, by the way. But it was interesting to see that there were those changes, and then reading about what was happening also with the shift, the hormonal shifts that happen at the beginning of the pregnancy. And how that also impacts the vasoconstriction, which means it's going to have an impact on your blood pressure, but then also how it changes at different stages of the pregnancy. And I do think that some of that hunger was happening at the same time as some of those initial changes.
Yeah.
And then at some point you kind of quote unquote find your groove, and it was less so or at least that's the way I perceived it. There was less talk about, oh, I could have the burger, I could have the pizza, I could have the pasta. Let's do some lasagna and that sort of things.
Yeah.
Which was also interesting because talking about expectations, nowadays the guidelines when it comes to nutrition and weight gain is pretty much like, hey, in the first trimester, nothing happens. You don't need more energy and you don't have to gain weight. And then from the second trimester on, then it's going to increase. You are going to get more hungry and you are going to get more weight. But for you, it was actually not really the case.
No, I mean, surely I will definitely start to gain more weight now that I'm like halfway through, because the baby is now like going through a building phase.
Yeah. So just on that note, so we calculated how it would translate that for us. And so at the
how
same...
much the baby is gaining now per week, yeah.
Which is crazy because it's going to double its size from now until the end of the pregnancy, but the weight is going to 10x. And so every week there's...
It's like 1/3 or 1/4 roughly.
Yeah.
That the baby is
so
gaining
imagine
week.
gaining 25% of your weight every week. So I would gain roughly 20 kilos, so that would be 45 pounds in 1 week, and for you it would be
50.
like 15 kilos, so 33 pounds something.
That's crazy. But yeah,
amazing.
that's for example something like you hear this like you should, or you will not gain weight in the first trimester because like there's literally nothing really big happening, right? The baby is like micro tiny small, and so it's not heavy, right? But I was definitely gaining some body fat. I was not super like crazy defined, shredded, but I was quite lean. And so my body definitely, I had the feeling my body is just needs that little bump in body fat. Then the boobs, we don't, like, that's an episode for itself. The boobs. The boobs are like, I think the one thing that surprised me the most. I didn't thought before becoming pregnant about the boobs, but the boobs are stealing the show of the bump, because the bump is still small, but the boobs are like huge. And something that I always hear from all the moms is like, it's not the end. It's not the end. You're not there yet. They're getting bigger. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, there's so much happening in my body, and it's okay that I gained my like 5 kilo in the first trimester. It went pretty fast. And also I was eating more when I was feeling I had to eat more, be it with more hunger or more appetite. I was definitely giving into that. I was not holding myself back. And now that I'm in the second trimester, where they say like, hey, you will gain, I don't know how much per week, and you need to consume 360 calories more per day. Now I'm like, I don't really feel like that. Like, I will still eat as much as I need to, but I'm not eating like every day 360 calories more than where I'm at maintenance. I kind of go a little bit with the flow there and just respond to what my body is telling me. Because one thing that I definitely build up over the course of the last years is having a very good relationship to my body and understanding what it asks of me.
Yeah, when you're hungry, for example, is like you can really tell whether it's hunger or if it's just appetite, or if you
because
need
then
more.
I just want more of the same, right?
Yeah.
I would just have my meal. I just want more of it. That's my hunger cue. Cravings is really like give me the burger and the ice cream and like all those things.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting, because talking about weighing yourself every day, this is also something. So first, this is something that happens when you go to the doctor, which I find also pretty interesting because they are measuring your weight to see what's happening. And so it's interesting because like in a clinical setting, then they are doing this, but then if you do that at home every day, then it's like obsessive behavior or whatnot. But it's actually a very, very good feedback loop to understand like what is happening actually, and also kind of correlate this with your hunger. And so for you, it's still the same game as when you were not pregnant. It was like, okay, if you were super hungry the day before and then you have a weight drop, then you know that it was like too little food that was coming in, and then maybe on the next day then you are going to have a bit more if the hunger is going to persist. Or the other way around, like if you go out and have like a huge meal and then you have a big jump on the scale and you felt just like very, very full, then the next day you also allow yourself to maybe not eat as much because your hunger is also adjusting to the food intake that you had yesterday.
100% agree.
Yeah, and I think this is something that you build up like before the pregnancy, but I also think that this is something that's even if you've never done that before, I do think that it has some value to do that, because it's going to just like create a lot of awareness, and if you approach that with curiosity, then it's also something that's going to be quite interesting to track and to follow, because now we can see the rate of gain, and is that matching the recommendation that we hear from doctors and the midwives or not. And
I do think that for someone who hasn't done that before, I don't know if I would get started on it during the pregnancy, because there are so many opinions, and because you don't know who to trust, who to listen to. We can just like quickly go into training today, but maybe we will do another episode on that. But if you are not that confident in certain things, it can also create a lot of like friction and a lot of
question mark and self-doubt.
Exactly, and stress. So for me, having done like 2 building phases in the past was the best thing ever, because that really helped me to understand what building up my body means, what it means to fuel properly for muscle growth, which is something that I'm doing right now as well with the baby, right? I need to make sure to grow it and to fuel my body properly for months on end. And so those 2 long building phases of 15, 16 months that I did, where I gained weight on purpose, and I reached a point also of discomfort in my body, because I hit my heaviest weight and it was just not the weight where I was normally sitting. That was definitely helping me. Also then swapping out clothes, like finding stuff that fits me well and is not so annoying, right? So it's kind of the same thing. So if you do have the time before your pregnancy to do a building phase, experience what it means to go through a building phase, I'm pretty convinced you will go differently through your pregnancy if you have had that experience before. And I mean, you can do a building phase, you can then do a fat loss phase, and then drop to a body fat percentage where you're like, okay, now I'm in a good place to build again for pregnancy. Because going through a building phase and then adding a pregnancy is probably a little bit more tricky. But yeah, I think that was a game changer for me, having had the experience of going through a building phase and understanding what it means when my body transforms, and not only in I'm getting leaner and I'm seeing some muscle definition, but also in the other way of like gaining weight on purpose and becoming softer. Now I can deal with that, and I understand it's a phase, and I know already, like I'm planning already ahead the the fat loss phase after that, and getting in shape, not because I'm stressing myself to be like in shape, but just because I would do the same way kind of with my building and cutting phases that I'm going through. And I've been in a maintenance phase for a long time. Now is the build that I will also exhaust a little bit for muscle building. And then next year, get ready.
Next photo shoot.
100%. I mean, this year we will also do a photo shoot, because we are not only doing photo shoots when we are super ripped, but yeah, I think we will maybe do another episode
On the training side.
On the training side, and dive a little bit deeper into like what we did from the very beginning, what we changed to what I've previously done, and how we are approaching like the current phase and what we are planning to do. I think that's a lot to talk about.
100%. So I don't know if there was any takeaway to get from this episode. It was more like a spontaneous announcement, public service announcement. But as a quick recap, the thing that I thought were interesting or valuable is like, first, if you can prepare yourself before going into the pregnancy to be as healthy as you can, that's most likely going to be helpful. And for you, I can remember that 2.5 years ago maybe you were at the doctor's, and they did find a cyst, and related to like PCOS. And then this is something that disappeared through the help of supplements, but also most likely the lifestyle that you've had. And I think this makes like a huge difference. The lifestyle, the right supplement, but also the right support system. So having that beforehand is going to be invaluable. I think what was super interesting is what you just said about like the building phase and being gone through that beforehand to really understand like the what it feels like to grow kind of on purpose. Very, very interesting. Then the expectations. I think this is massive. And for me, it was super interesting to see that you were so positively surprised up until this point, because maybe the expectations were a bit like lower than what you've experienced, which is actually a pretty good strategy if you want to be positively surprised. 100%. But also at time it can be a bit stressful, if you expect that you are going to have all of those symptoms happens and then nothing does, or the other way around, and then you just think like, is it normal, especially if it's the first time? And then you start to question like whether you are doing things right or wrong, just because there are so many like things that you are exposed to, different scenarios and situations that you see from other people, and then you imagine that it's going to go one way, but then it goes the other, and you think like, okay, something's off, something's wrong. So I think like having worse expectation than what you experience is pretty good to be positively surprised. But I also think that is very helpful to not have a lot of expectation and just be like, okay, I'm going to take it as it comes. And this is usually the advice that we gave to the women that we coach who are pregnant, is like, we don't know yet how it's going to happen. And so we are just going to take it one day at a time. And then depending on how you can eat and how you can train, then you are going to make the necessary adjustment. And it might be the food choices, it might be the calories, it might be the timing, it might be the macro split, it might be nothing at all. And in terms of training, then same thing. It could be like, hey, maybe you are going to be able to train exactly. Most of the time, this is actually what happens. The women that we've coached so far, they were able to work out like pretty much the same as what they were doing before. And so not having a lot of expectation and just taking things as they come, I think is going to be pretty helpful. Yeah.
Amen.
All right.
Wrapping this up today. I hope it helped a little bit. Thank you for the little recap. And I will definitely share more, of course, of little.
I have one last message.
What's the message?
The message is this. So I can remember, the first time that we talked, and you were like, hey, I think I have like PCOS because that's what they told me. I don't have a period. I want to improve my hormones. It was pretty like you were pretty distressed about that whole situation, but you never like took no for an answer, and you were so freaking determined to make things better and to stay the course, to see it through. And I think like this is like the happy end story. I mean, it's not the end. Fingers crossed that everything goes as well as it has been so far. But I think there's a lot to be said about your mindset in the last decade when it comes to, the whole work that you put in, and having that determination and just being like, hey, I want to improve things. I want to make it better, and I want to find a solution because I know that there's a solution for me out there. And this is something that, we talk about macros and building phases and strategy for long term and then training to failure and that kind of things. But like, this is not going to work if you don't have that kind of mindset. And so props to you for doing that, but also for you who's listening. If there's one thing that you can take from everything that we say and do, this is it. Like, never give up, stay convinced that you're going to find a solution, and get after it.
Until next time. Bye-bye.